All right. Welcome to the Tag Talks podcast. Today I'll be joined by my good friend, former teammate and tag athlete, Nick Parisotto. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you and talk to you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. Looks like you're enjoying the sun there. You got like palm trees in the background.
The palm tree with a little pool going on right there.
It's pretty wild.
We're in this quarantine lockdown, you know.
All right, so to start off, why don't you just tell us your name, kind of what position or sport you play, kind of where you're from, how long you've been training at tag for, and what current team you're playing for.
So my name's Nick Parisotto. I'm from Guelph, Ontario, born and raised. I play defensive back. I've been playing defensive back like pretty much my whole career. In competitive football, for high school football, you know how it is, like everyone kind of switches around. I played a little bit of quarterbacks and running back, receiver, did all that fun stuff. Loved it. I've been training at tag for probably a year and a half, 2 years now. And I've been loving it, man. It's a great experience. It's a great atmosphere to train with everybody. And the attention to detail is just better than what I've ever done. You know, there's a lot of effort put in behind the scenes that you can really tell. It goes into every single training session. So I'm loving it.
Big shout out. Appreciate that. What current team are you playing for?
Right now, I'm living in Mexico City, playing for the Mexico City Condors in the LFA, which is the Liga Football Americano.
Ooh,
so
even throw the accent on that. Yeah, we'll come back and talk about that a little bit more. But just to kind of get the ball rolling here and to hear some more about you, let's go through. We got some quick 6 questions here, just a bunch of random ones. Favorite meal?
My favorite meal is 100% tacos al pastor, which is essentially stacked pork, like picture a shawarma on a spit. They do layers of pork with onions, and they season the pork for days, and then they slow roast it around the spit. It spins, and then when you order, they shave it off like a shawarma, and then put it in your taco with a slice of pineapple, and you get it to garnish it with your cilantro and onions. Oh my God, I've probably eaten like 400 of those since I've been here.
It sounds amazing. I could go for one of those right now. All right, favorite exercise?
My favorite exercise is probably squats.
Big time. Love the squats. Least favorite exercise?
Anything core.
Anything core. I resonate with that so hard. If you could play any other sport or another position, what would it be?
I would be so the first month I was in Mexico, we lived in this place called the Cinar, which is like their Olympic training center here in Mexico. And I found out that handball is an Olympic sport and a professional sport. And I only played handball in gym class. So after seeing that, like, damn, I need to get back on the handball circuit, yo.
Yeah.
Like, way easier than football on the body. You take 3 steps, you whip the little ball in the soccer net, you pretty much score every single time, so you look like a hero. Why not? When I come back, that's my game.
There you go, man. Reach those Olympic dreams. That's probably the easiest way. In your opinion, best sports movie of all time?
My favorite and the one that speaks to me the most would be Friday Night Lights. You know, because it shows you like what a real team is like, and you know, it teaches you a lot about the life of a football player and kind of what they go through. I know not everything is the same as Texas high school football, but you know, it's very relatable to young athletes, and you know, it speaks to me a lot.
I freaking wish it was like Texas high school football.
I know.
No one in where we played high school football, no one gave a shit about our games. No one was giving us free meals. None of that stuff was going on. So shout out to Texas, man. They've got that stuff done right. Okay, last question of the random ones, and you can have multiple answers if you want. Favorite podcasts, books, blogs, what are your go-tos?
The only podcast that I've really been exposed to would have been the Joe Rogan podcast, because when Newts and I were driving back and forth from Hamilton every day commuting, we would always put on Joe Rogan, and we put on the episode of the day and just go to town, listen to it on the way there in the morning, and then finish it on the way home. So that was my first like experience with podcasting, and I really enjoyed it because it's such a variety of topics. Like, it's never the same thing every day. Like, it's the most random stuff shoved in your face, which is kind of cool because you don't necessarily get exposed to that stuff on your own.
Yeah,
But
the thing I love about Joe's podcast is like whatever you're feeling, you can find. Like if you just want to laugh your ass off and have some mindless entertainment, you can find that. If you want to learn more about this or that, or hear some cool things, like Joe's got you hooked up. So that's the one thing that I really like about Joe's podcast.
yeah, they're very informative.
What about
And
books
as
or
of lately,
blogs?
blogs. Not really much of a blog reader, to be honest. But as of lately, since I've been down here, I've been spending a lot of time reading. So I've probably already finished like 4 or 5 books in the past month or so. I read The Alchemist, which is a great classic book. Just that might be one of my favorites that I've read down here, just because it teaches you to enjoy not necessarily like your goals and the grand scheme of your life, just enjoying the process, enjoying the little moments that come as you're in your pursuit of, your ultimate goal. So it's been really refreshing to read that stuff. And I read a couple fiction books just to keep me entertained. One about this archaeologist who goes out into the Wild West and has to fight off Indians and like old Union soldiers from the Civil War. So it was really entertaining to kind of have that balance there.
What was that one called about? You were telling me the other day, Dino Teeth or something?
Yeah, Dinosaur Teeth.
Dinosaur Teeth.
Yeah, it was really
Check
cool.
it out. It's got Nick Parisotto's endorsement, Dinosaur Teeth.
I think I finished that book in like 3 days, man. I was just crushing it. I loved it. I couldn't put it down.
It actually sounded pretty dope when you were talking about it. Okay, so you talked about playing down in Mexico, playing for the Condors. Why don't you kind of talk to us about your whole career and how you got to where you're at right now? So you started, like you said earlier, you started playing football in Guelph, GMFA. Then you played at high school. Kind of talk to us about, I think you played Team Canada. What year was that?
Well, I started off right out of during high school. I tried out for Team Ontario in 2010, and I made it as an underager. I played with other guys like Curtis Newton and James Roberts was on that team as well.
Shout out
and
Robs.
And then in 2011, we went to, it was in London, Ontario, and that was my second year playing Team Ontario. We were the older.
You got your years mixed up, big dog, because I was 2010. I played Team O 2010 with all the boys. You were 2011, 2012.
Oh,
because I remember it was 2012. You were playing for Timo in London.
yeah, that's right.
That was the first time I ever watched you play. I remember you were playing boundary half, and I watched you jam somebody, and I was like, man, I like that. I like that guy. Your return punts, you were jamming people hard up in that 5-yard bracket back when we were still allowed to jam. But yeah, that was actually you playing for Timo. I think it was 2012, because that was the summer of me going into my first year at Guelph. That was actually the first time I watched you play.
Okay, yeah, that is right.
And Newt was there. Me and Newt were there. Drulard was on that team. A couple of the boys.
Yeah, he was.
A bunch of guys that we played with at the University of Guelph. So sorry to cut you off there, but
yeah. So I finished off playing Team Ontario, and that was kind of like the ending of the end of my recruiting process. And then it was pretty heavy. Like I was getting recruited by quite a few places, and I ended up narrowing it down to just schools in Ontario. Obviously ended up choosing Guelph because of I saw the way the program was going. I saw the direction it was heading in. I had a lot of contact with players on the team, and I just really felt like the team vibe was, something that I wanted to be a part of, with a good veteran group and a lot of guys that could really teach me how to become a football player. Because growing up in Guelph, we didn't have the football resources. We didn't have, film meetings and stuff. So coming into my first year, I remember meeting with our DC, Kevin McNeil, and he was like, oh, like, what's this coverage? What's that? Looking at the film, I'm like, honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah.
He's like, this is cut coverage. What do you mean? Like, this is double cut. I'm like, oh, well, like, guess we better get in the film room.
Yeah. No, I feel that, man.
And then I went from there. After Team Ontario and getting recruited, I had the opportunity to try out for Team Canada in 2013, coming in like the summer going into university. And luckily I made the final roster, which was like the U19 team. So we got to go to Italy for our training camp. We spent a week in Milan practicing. And then from there we flew to Kuwait, in Kuwait City. And then that's where the World Championships were held. And we played France, Austria, Team Kuwait, and then we ended up losing to the United States in the gold medal game. So we came home with silver, but overall an amazing experience and a great time. Just it goes to show you that football can take you a lot of places that you weren't expecting to go. So I've been able to travel a lot through football, and I'm thankful for that for sure. And then after finishing Team Canada, started my first training camp. Like a week later, we got back, and it was right into training camp, which was kind of nice because I spent almost a month playing football right before training camp. So I was ready to go. I was feeling fresh. I was feeling confident going in. I think that really helped in my first year. And, I had a good 4 years playing there. I ended up being drafted by the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the 8th round, the third last pick in the draft, which was pretty stressful, I must say. But it was a dream come true nonetheless.
Yeah, man. Just fortunate enough to hear your name called, right?
Yeah, it was an emotional day. I can still remember that time. It was amazing.
Yeah, man. I bet. Is there anything kind of like through your 4 years, like, you talked about your experiences with Team Ontario and that leading to you playing with Team Canada and traveling the world and doing that piece. Any like highlights from your time at Guelph through the 4 years that really stick out for you?
The ultimate highlight would have to be winning the Yates Cup in 2015, just because I felt like that team was so close. Everyone was so tight-knit on that team. We just had such a focus throughout everything we did and such a hunger. Like every single offseason workout, every single practice was competitive. Like it was just something I'd never been a part of and something I've never experienced since, to be honest.
Yeah, man, those were special times. That was 2015, that Yates Cup victory. That was a bunch of years in the making. A lot of behind the scenes work.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun went in behind that, like you were talking about with the Alchemist, and how it forces you to really enjoy the process. Like, you know what, winning the Yates Cup was cool. That was awesome. But for me personally, when I look back on that, like the best part was the work that went into it, the years of, new guys coming in, us either kicking them the fuck out or, letting them into our posse. And we formed this band of dudes that were committed to what we were trying to do. And then it accumulated by the end of it all in that Yates Cup victory. Cause you know what, like we definitely weren't the most talented team. I think all of us would agree that we weren't the most talented team. Don't get us wrong. Like we had a ton of good players, some unbelievable players that went on to play in the CFL and have really great careers, but widespread, like there's probably teams that were out there more talented than us, but we just had a bond that literally couldn't be broken. And that was what willed us to that championship, in my opinion, again.
Oh, no, I completely agree. I think it all started the day. Like for me, it was emotional watching. Like I didn't really understand, and after my first year when we lost to McMaster and the Yates, like I didn't really understand the emotion because I hadn't put my time into the program yet. And watching guys like Farkey and the other vets like be emotional and crying after the last game, it kind of struck home to me, and I was like, damn, like this is gonna be a long ride. And then Langer puts up that photo in our weight room of the final score of us losing. And every single day we walk up the weight room stairs and we'd see that photo, and it just made us that much more hungry, and it just contributed to every single thing. And it was just like the spiral effect that just kept going.
Yeah, every
made
day
it that much more
you
insane.
walk in the weight room, you want to rip that damn picture off the wall, but Coach Lang put it there for a reason, and it did obviously pay off. I remember was it like the first day of training camp, we took that picture off the wall and we went outside as a team and we burnt it. It's like dousing it with like lighter fluid and stuff, and we burning it, and it's like vinyl and the black smoke that was pouring off this thing and the smell. We were just like, man, this is not good. Like, we should not. Yeah, exactly. We should not be burning this right now. So would you say, like obviously you've had some pretty amazing memories. You've had a pretty unbelievable career in terms of the places you've been. Would you say that Yates Cup was your favorite football memory, or what is your favorite football memory? You can have multiples too if you want to share those.
Yeah, that would probably be my number one, just because I'd say it's not so much of like a selfish thing. It was more for like me and everybody who got to experience that because we were all together. But my number 2 would have to be a little bit more selfish and just saying, like, the day that I finally was drafted, you know, that was like, I've been dreaming of that day since I was like 12. And, you know, I just think back to those hours and hours and hours in the gym in high school and the days of running on my own and, you know, just reflecting back on that, what it took to get me there. And yeah, that would definitely be my number 2, just having that, you know, that kind of weight come off my shoulders a little bit. And then the next would be actually playing in a game, you know, making my first couple tackles at the pro level, which was just, you know, it was just crazy. Just the level of intensity, the speed, like you're just running around like a wide-eyed rookie again. Like everything's a new world, trying not to get killed.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, that like in that context, you're stepping on the field with men. Like there's people there that are literally, you know, 10 years older than you, been playing football for 10 years. That I can imagine that's probably a different level of intensity. Just, you know, these guys are pretty much paid assassins. Like they just go out there and kill for a living on the field. So to step on there and compete with them, I'm sure would probably be pretty amazing. I'm just thinking here. So why don't we actually go through that? Like, you know, draft day, like you said, that was, you know, you don't need to feel bad for that being selfish. Like that's validation for all that work you put in. You know, to get to draft day and hear your name called, obviously you had to do a lot of things right. So if you can look back on your career, you know, thinking high school, university, what are the things that you think you did well that kind of helped you be successful? What are the things that got you to draft day and hearing your name called?
There was this one kind of moment. I was like grade 11, you know, I was in mixed math at the time. So the math you take when you're not sure if you're going to go to university, the college route. So I was taking mixed math. I remember just being like, damn, like, I don't know if I like math that much. Like I always hated math. I hated school. I didn't really try that hard. I kind of did the bare minimum. And then that was at the point where I was getting like recruited pretty heavily, and they kept stressing, you know, like if you want to go to university, you really have to get in your grades. Like you have to have an 80% to get a scholarship. And I was like, all right. So started taking it a little bit more seriously. I didn't do that hot. I think I did okay in the mixed math. And then my guidance counselor was like, all right, you got to take university level math. I'm like, oh crap. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this to get that 80. So I struggled. I didn't do very well in the grade 11 university. I pretty much almost failed. My teacher's like, I highly recommend you do not take grade 12 academic math. I'm like, I'll see you there, buddy. I'll see you there. So I think it was that year. It was advanced functions. I was like almost failing the course at the start of the year. And I'm like, man, like I got to buckle down. And I'd always like been a worker when it came to like the gym, when it came to football. Like I was always there putting extra stuff, like doing my hardest. But when it came to school, I was like, meh, I don't really have the motivation to do it, you know? And then it was that year, that semester, where I was just like, okay, screw it. Like if I want to make this happen, I got to just like buckle down and do it. So I think I started going to a tutor every Friday night. I'd go to a tutor right after school, get my homework done. And that was kind of the start of like the snowball of, you know, trying harder in school. And then my other friend who was in my class, we were both doing pretty shitty. And I'm like, all right, man, like we got to help each other out. So every single day for the rest of that semester, we'd meet up at lunch. We'd get extra help, get everything done. And then right after school, because we always had homework, we'd meet up, get all our homework done. And then we started going to the tutor together on Fridays. And I think we brought our grades up from like 50s to like high 70s by the end of that semester. And then I ended up finishing the class with like, I don't know, 73 or something, but I still had enough of a buffer where I got my 80%. And then it got me on the academic honor roll for my senior year in high school, which was like something that I never pictured myself doing. Like I was always like, oh, I'm the athlete, whatever. I can do this in sports, but I never really pictured myself as, you know, the academic type. And I was just like, oh, maybe I'm not smart enough to do it. But it was just because I was just being lazy.
Yeah.
Like I was never putting in the time. I wasn't applying myself to my schoolwork like I was with football. And that was the biggest thing that changed me, because after seeing myself do that, I was like, damn, I can literally just do anything. Like you just plug at it and you want to get better and you try and you take those baby steps, like you can do anything. And I know it's only math and it's not like astrophysics or anything, but you know, it was a big step for me and for my friend just to put ourselves through that. So I think that would have to be like one of the most defining things.
Dude, the thing that I think is the coolest about what you just said is it's like, you know, the question I asked you was like, you know, what are the things that you think you did well to get you to where you're at? And I think a lot of people are expecting the answers to be, oh, training, oh, this, nutrition. And like, don't get me wrong, those things are important, but like you went immediately to academic side. And I can resonate with that because like, that's why I'm laughing when you're telling your story, because that's the exact same as mine, man. Like I was a terrible student. I couldn't give a rat's ass about school until it became important. And like you said, the biggest thing and why I love sports, why I love training, why I'm so passionate about this stuff, and why I want to literally dedicate my entire life to it is, man, that lesson that you learned, oh, when I just apply myself, when I just do the little things right, when I just, you know, find an accountability buddy, when I surround myself with the people that are going to actually help me and support my goals, I can do whatever I want. And that's why I love doing what I do with the Athletes Garage and with training and with coaching. It's like, if we can get young people, not just guys, if we can get young people to understand that, man, when you just set goals, apply yourself, do the little things right, be consistent, make a few sacrifices, when we can show them through sports or training that, hey, here's the recipe for success, then you can take that and apply that to anything in life, right? When we were 13 or 14 years old, if someone was like, hey man, why don't you come on over here and I'm going to show you the recipe for success on how to be a great student, we would have been like, hey man, I'm 13. I don't give a shit. I want to go climb trees and mess around with my boys. But if someone's like, hey, let me teach you the recipe of success on how to be a great football player or a great athlete, we'll listen. And then if we're smart enough, we can internalize that lesson and then apply that to anything. So really, it's like, I love training, I love sports, but it's because it's a fun way to learn like the most valuable lessons of, hey, if you commit yourself and you're consistent and you surround yourself with the right people, you can honestly kind of do whatever you want. And that's why I really love what I get to do. And so it's so cool because that's really my philosophy as a coach and how I try and operate the Athletes Garage. So it's kind of cool that, you know, when I ask you that question, you basically just take the exact, you give the exact answer that, you know, I would give if I was asked that question. So that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, man, like, honestly, like, I think the biggest things that people need to understand from your answer, if there's any high school kids or whatever that listen to this, is like, the big thing is like, you got a buddy. You went out and you found a friend who was in a similar situation, who had similar goals that wanted to turn it around, and you supported each other. That's a huge thing. Like the people you surround yourself with are going to be, you know, what's that one quote? It's like, you are the kind of like the summation of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like,
Yeah.
if all your boys are idiots that don't give a shit about school, guess what? You're going to be the 5th idiot that doesn't give a shit about school. So I think that's the thing that's really important for kids to understand is find somebody that's got some similar goals to you and hang around with that guy or hang around with that girl. It depends whatever situation you're in. But then the other thing was, you know, you said, oh, we're going to tutor on Friday night. Most kids, who the heck's going to go see their tutor Friday night? Everyone's going to make excuses like, oh, it's Friday night. I had a hard week. I want to chill with the boys. It's like, no, you saw how that was going to help you reach your ultimate goal. And you said, I don't give a crap about my Friday night. Like, if this is what I have to do to get there, I'll do it. And that's the level of sacrifice that you have to make if you want to achieve your goals.
Oh, exactly. And the funny thing is that, you know, I have like some of my best friends now, I love them to death, but they were the last people who gave a crap about school. Like, you know, those are the guys who are more interested in skipping school, you know, going to smoke weed with their friends during lunch or immediately after school, like no thought of homework, just going to chill. And, you know, I had to put those guys on the back burner. It was hard because I love them and we had a lot of fun together, but, you know, just making those sacrifices and saying like, yo, like I can't hang out tonight. Like, you know, maybe we'll do something Saturday. Like my Friday night's booked, or like I got to do my homework tonight first. Like that was the hard part. And even my friend that I went to the tutoring with, like he wasn't into sports. Like I had to go, he was a friend from elementary school, but he had no desire to go play football. It wasn't like me and him were doing the same thing, going the same route. It was just like, we both want to improve our situation, just like what you were saying. And we stuck together and just did it, you know? And that's the thing is when you're going through a transition like that, is to just rely on people that, you know, want to do the things that you want to do, and just stick together and just know that, you know, your hard work will pay off. So it was good.
No, I love that answer. And I think that's a hugely important message that a lot of kids need to hear. Yeah, like honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better answer. That's pretty much the exact answer I would give myself to that question. But those are a lot of the things that you did right. Like you were able to kind of see how the little things that you had to do would pay off in the long run and help you reach your goals. But you know, it's been some years now. You've learned a ton. You've traveled the world playing football. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to, like, let's say grade 10 or grade 11 Nick Parisotto? What advice would you give to that guy?
I would say stretch more.
Stretch more. Well, why you say that?
Those kids, when I first started training, you know, my one of my best friends, his family was bodybuilders. So his uncle was like a Mr. Ontario. His dad was a bodybuilder. His other uncle was a bodybuilder. And like, we would just go to the gym and just lift till we couldn't walk or move. And we do that every day for like, it seemed like years. And it wasn't until I was like grade 12 plus that I really found out about like mobility and stretching and, you know, how to take care of yourself properly. Because I remember at practice, I'd be so tight. I had the worst shin splints on this earth. I could barely walk because my shins were so messed up. Like I had stress fractures, you name it. My shins were like China dolls. They were breaking apart. And then when I started to realize about stretching and foam rolling and everything, how it can assist you to stay like on top of your game, that was when like I think my career kind of changed, because I took like the longevity part like more seriously. And back then I was lifting like a maniac, doing any exercise. I just walk into the gym and be like, let's just lift till we get sore. There was no real approach to it. I was just like training everything all at once. So looking back, say like put the time into my stretching. I did do a stretching class once and learned a little bit, but you know, that was the big thing that really, really helped me. And if I could have learned that earlier, I feel like I would have been in a lot better shape going forward into my more senior years.
True. The little lesson that I would like to extract kind of from that, and it's in line with kind of how I approach training with the programs and everything that I put together for my high school athletes, is like, it's all about balance, right? So like you said, like you when you first got into training, it was like bodybuilding, train until you can't walk, you're falling down the stairs post workout, but that's what you think is right? And it's like, you know, stretching for you was the answer. For other people, the answer might be a little different. But the biggest thing, and I think with athletes, is we need to have balance, right? We can't just train like power lifters. We can't just train like bodybuilders. Like there's so much that actually goes into athletic performance that you need to have that balance. You need to run really fast for short periods of time. You need to run moderately fast for moderate periods of time. You need to run slow for longer periods of time. You need to do your mobility. You need to do your stretching. You need to do your jumps, your throws, your this, your that, and lift. So training for athletics it's like there's so many pieces of the puzzle. And if you focus on just one, you're not really going to be that well-rounded. So the people that, you know, don't lift and just run, well, you know what, like that'll serve you for a while, but it's a contact sport. You need to have some meat on your bones if you're going to be banging throughout a full season. So like I said, I think the lesson from to kind of extract and apply to other people is like, the lesson is balance. You need to have some balance in your life, and especially in your training as an athlete. So to stick on that kind of that time machine question. So you go back to high school, you're telling him to stretch more. You go back to, like, let's say second year university, Nick Parisotto, what advice would you give him?
I feel like that was almost like the peak of my university career. That was the year I was second team All-Canadian. I was the first team OUA All-Star. You know, everything was looking really good. And I think we kind of almost got like, I don't know, I don't want to say complacent because I was still hungry, but, you know, it just seemed like things kind of dropped off. I don't know, maybe it's because I was in a relationship at the time. You know, my focus wasn't all there on football. Maybe I just wasn't managing that balance properly, but I don't know. I'd say I just got to, like, I wish I could have kicked it into another gear instead of just kind of staying where I was. You know, I was happy with my performance. I was happy with the way things were going. I just wish I could have maybe found it in myself to go up another level and had that inspiration to try a little harder and do those extra things that could have pushed me to, you know, make myself better in the long run. But, you know, I live with my choices.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know, some people live with regret or whatever. And the way I've always tried to frame things in my life is like, man, I've made so many mistakes in my life, so many, but what's the sense in dwelling on it? It's like, you know, there's a lesson there. Right. And that's what my goal, or what I'm trying to do with this is I ask you questions, you give answers, and I love it. And then my job is to try and extract what's the lesson there. So, you know, one lesson is like, you're not sitting here dwelling on, you know, that situation. You're not thinking, oh, well, what if I would have done this different? No, you've learned a lesson. You'll carry that forward for the rest of your life. So, you know, when you start to have success, you're not going to let the foot off the gas pedal in the future, because you've learned that lesson from, oh, remember when I was in second year and I was at my peak and I maybe let the gas off. I was maybe starting to buy into my own hype a little too much. And I let things loose, and you're never going to do that again because you've learned that lesson. So that's what I think. Like, don't have regrets. Just learn from your mistakes. That's why we make mistakes. And if you're making mistakes in sports or in athletics or in training, that's a pretty safe way to make mistakes, right? Because like, in the grand scheme of things, the consequences aren't really life or death.
No.
So I think so would you say that's kind of an accurate depiction of maybe at the end of second year, you bought into your own hype a little bit too much. You thought, you know, this is just the way it's going to continue to be. I'm just going to show up and I'll be an all Canadian. I'm just trying to ask, is that kind of how your mentality went there, or what do you think?
Not exactly. Like, I don't know if it was so much into my own hype. It was just kind of like, I had been so hungry to like achieve success in football for so long, and like it was such a long process of like having all this motivation, and then it kind of like, you know, we won the championship. It was kind of like the highlight of it all, and then it kind of just like almost went stale. Like, it was like, we've achieved so much, I've done all this, like how can I keep going? Like, it was just more of like the fuel tank was almost empty. You know what I mean? Like, we'd given so much for so long. It was just hard to like get that fire relit under my butt to like keep me going. And I still like, looking back, there was more days where I walked off the field or out of the gym, like crawling on the floor because of how hard we trained and how much work we put in. But, you know, maybe it just wasn't all in the right way. Maybe it just wasn't being focused in the right way, my efforts.
Yeah. And I don't want any of this to be misinterpreted, right? Because I was there with you for most of this, whether it was as one of your teammates, or, you know, as my first year or as my last year with the Griffins as the strength conditioning coach. Like, I don't want anything to be misinterpreted here. Nick was not cutting corners or slacking off. That guy was a hard worker from the day I met him. And so I don't want anyone to misinterpret or think that he was slacking off by any means, because that certainly was not the case. But again, like, what I want to try and again, I don't even know if we'll make progress on this, but what I want to try and talk about is, you know, you said that the fuel tank was empty, this and that. You used a bunch of different phrases. Like, do you think your goals at that point, you know, maybe you didn't have enough? You didn't have enough goals set, and you had already checked so many of the boxes of so many of the goals that you did want to achieve, that at that point you were kind of like, well, what's left?
Yeah, I think that's more accurate. Like, that's kind of like that point in my life, and then where I'm at now, we're fairly similar, just because, you know, like from that point on, I continued, like I did find that second wind. I did continue to train. You know, I eventually went pro, and then now that my pro career's, you know, potentially come to an end, it's kind of in that same situation. Like, what's next? Like, what are the next goals I need to achieve? And I think you're right about that. At that point, I didn't have enough goals set. Like, on my wall, I had written down, like, you know, become an OUA All-Star, like become an All-Canadian, you know, eventually get drafted and do all these things. But I don't think they were specific enough and realistic enough for that time period of those next couple years of university football.
Yeah, no. And again, the lessons that you can extract from that is like, you had those goals and you had them written down and you had them on your wall in places where you're going to see them every day. Like if you study successful people in any realm, whether it's sports, whether it's business, whether it's life, those people are using those types of tactics, writing your goals out, putting them places where you're going to see, and making them front of mind with everything. And I think what you said is something that, again, that I can kind of resonate with too, is that like, it's important to set big goals and piece like that into small action steps. So you want to have your big outcome based goal, which is like whatever it is, and then break it into what are the mini goals that are going to get me there. And I think that's one thing that I also, when I look back on my career, that I screwed up too, is I tried so hard to set goals in a way that I always had something to strive for, but I didn't have enough big goals at the end. Like I did a really good job of making those micro like goals along the way, but I think at the end, like I didn't have enough big goals. Like I never wrote down that I wanted to be an all Canadian or that I wanted to get drafted or like those weren't my big goals. My big goals were like, I wanted to be the best possible university football player that I could be, and I wanted to win a Vanier Cup. Those were my two goals. And you know, maybe if I would have had some bigger, higher goals above that, like get drafted or be an all Canadian, maybe that would have been the motivation for me to really actually achieve both of those goals. Maybe if I was if I was striving towards getting drafted or something like that, I would have been a better university player, and that maybe I could have helped my team win a Vanier. Who knows? I'm just saying that's one thing that I've learned is you do have to have those bigger goals, because when you hit up all your micro goals along the way, you can get to a point where you're kind of lost and you think, oh, I've hit all my goals, I'm doing good. It's like you always have to have that carrot out in front where you're always trying to chase something more. And it's not to say don't be, you know, like don't be excited when you hit those goals. It's just like, if you want to be successful, yeah, enjoy your successes, but always have something else that you're chasing. Always have something else that's out in front of you, because like you said, you can get caught in that trap where you do get a little complacent if you don't have something that you're always striving for.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think you need to constantly be striving, and you know, it just kind of gets you out of bed in the morning, makes you, you know, gets a little pep in your step.
Yeah, and on those days you don't want to do it, it's big enough to keep you to keep you moving.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome, man. Let's stick with that, and let's give you one last time machine question. So you just got drafted by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You're going into your first camp. What advice, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to that version of Nick Parisotto?
I would say don't stress so much. Don't let your nerve, like, I was there for a reason. You know, the team believed in me. They provided me with the opportunity to be there, and you know, they obviously thought I was capable of being there. So I shouldn't have been in my head so much. Like, I wasn't saying I was a nervous wreck, but goddamn, my stomach felt like it was in my throat half the time before practice. You know, because there's a lot of pressure. Everything's like under a microscope. Every movement, every step, you get called out in front of, you know, guys you looked up to your whole life who've been playing pro. You know, it's just a lot different than what we were kind of used to in university. But
well, it's different circumstances, right? Like at that point, it's a job, right? Like they're paying you to make that tackle. They're paying you to block that guy on kickoff return, right? It's just the stakes are different. Before, it's always like, man, I just love this sport. There's nothing that I want to do more than strap up and go on the field and play a game with my boys. And now it's like, yo, I'm a grown up. I've got bills to pay. This is how I pay my bills. So it's just different stakes. So, so do you think it was kind of like a lack of belief in yourself when you got there? You're kind of starting to doubt yourself, or what was it?
Lately, yeah. And I think I was just so caught up in the fact that I was there and that it was such a different environment. And, like, I just needed to get back to where football was just like a game and I was having fun, because that's when you play the best, when you're having fun and you're confident and you kind of simplify things. But I was just so in my head, like, I got to do this right, I got to do that right. I was running all these scout team reps, which I'd never done, and doing all these random things, playing receiver, going against like barely playing defense at all. So it was weird, but kind of get down to the dumps sometimes because I was never used to that. But just getting back to that foundation, just having fun every single day. And I started to find that towards the end, but initially it was just so like overwhelming and so much pressure. But if I could approach it again, I would just say, just let that stress go. Just enjoy the fact that you're there and just make like every second of the journey, good. Enjoy it.
Would you say that was like the biggest challenge that you faced in your career?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just going from like university, where I was on first team. Like I think the first week of my first year, I was backup, and then from then on, I took over the starting spot. So I kind of had it made, you could say. Like I had a good gig, and then going from there, I was just scout team every day, like as a backup. But it was still fun. Like it was a great experience, but I just wish I could have made it better on myself.
Yeah, no, that's cool to hear. And you said you kind of got over it, or you got through it at the end, and it was just by focusing on kind of like, if I could paraphrase, like your love of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to kind of reconnect with why you did it rather than kind of what you're doing, right? Like, I'm here because I'm talented and because I freaking love this sport. And once you can get back to that place, I think you're just mentally, you're just in a better space.
Yeah. I was just focused on like the relationships with my teammates, like going out there, giving them my best effort no matter what. And just like, letting the football gods control the rest, just having fun with myself, having fun with the guys. And that was when I was the most at peace. And then going into my second training camp, I went in there with that same mentality after training all off season with you and the guys. Like I was just in a good spot. And then, unfortunately after the second week of training camp or whatever, I got released. So, it is what it is, but hopefully the opportunity will come back.
Yeah. Well, and so if you're cool with it, you want to talk about that. So you went in on your second training camp with the Thai Cats. It was day like 4 or 5 of camp. What day was it?
Oh yeah, it was the first week of camp. Yeah.
It was the first week
like
of camp.
First week. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I was driving to Hamilton to come watch practice that morning. Mm-hmm. And I remember it's early in the morning, man. I'm driving down towards Hamilton. It's like 7, not even 7:30 yet, and my phone's ringing. I'm like, who the hell is calling me this early in the morning? And it was you. And I'm coming to watch you and Newt and Coral and all these boys that we just finished training together for the last like 6 months through the off season. And I'm coming there to watch you guys. And you called me. You're like, hey man, like, I just got cut. Like, I don't know what the hell to do. And I'm like, what? Like, it completely blindsided me because, that, like, I'd been around you for a long time at that point, right? Like I said, I first saw you play in 2012. This was 2019. Physically, that's the best I've ever seen you. That's the fastest I've ever seen you. That's the strongest I've ever seen you. Like, so when you got cut, it just kind of floored me. Like, I almost puked in my car because I was like, what the hell? Like, it's not fair. But talk to us about kind of like how you came through that and got to where you're at now. You're down in Mexico with the birds chirping and the palm trees behind you, playing football before all this coronavirus shut everything down. Like, how did you go from that day getting released and feeling like the world is ending to wearing this cool little straw hat in the sunny city of city? Tell us about that.
So yeah, I was like I was getting ready for practice that day in Hamilton, getting the therapist use my massage gun on my legs. I was feeling great. At that point, I was taking like second team safety reps a lot because we had our new free agent come in. Our backup was a little injured, so I was taking a lot of reps. I was starting on like 4 special teams. And then all of a sudden they're like, coach wants to see you. I'm like, all right, go in there. They're like, Nick, like, we're sorry, we're releasing you. I'm like, are you kidding? This is a joke? And they're just like, no, like, we're really sorry. It's just a numbers game, like this and that. And they had the new rule with international players, which take up 2 roster spots. So it kind of sucked for Canadian guys because those are the spots that got taken up. But then, they're like, okay, turn in your stuff. You got to pack up. So I drive back to Guelph. I was pretty devastated. It was a shitty time. And I was just like, okay, like, I'm going to stay ready. So for the next like month or so, I just continued to work out every day. I was on the field every day with Tristan, doing stuff. And then got to the point like almost 2 months in, I'm like I can't do this. I can't afford to just train every day. Like I wasn't really working. I was cutting some grass and stuff, trying to make some cash, but I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I think it's over. Like I had been contacted by the Red Blacks twice, but both times they went with offensive players. So I was like, all right, like I'm done, I guess. I'm done football. So I called up my cousin. I was like, hey, cuz, like I want to get in the roofing business. So I moved up north 2 hours away up on Georgian Bay in Owen Sound. Got working there with him, doing roofing, learning the business. And I stayed up there all summer and until Christmas this year. And actually one day while I was on the roof working, I got a call from the CFL and I was like, oh, like, this is weird. And they're like, hey, Nick, like we got an opportunity with a new football league down in Mexico. It's a pro league. They're interested in having there's a Canadian player draft. Like, are you interested in signing up? And I was still on the roof and I'm like, sign me up. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, like I literally am on a roof, like doing labor right now. Like, please sign me up. I want to go. And he's like, you don't even want to talk to anybody. You don't want a day to consider this? I'm like, no. Put my name on the list. So it puts my name on the list. And then the draft's like 3 weeks later. They put my name in the draft and I was selected 5th overall by the Mexico City Condors, which was pretty cool because I was in talks with another team in Puebla, which is a couple hours south of Mexico City. It's a smaller town, but I was really happy to be taken by Mexico City because it's just a huge place and it is amazing here. There's so much to see and do. So yeah, I came down here in January. I've been here since January. It's now, I don't even know what day it is.
April 10th, baby.
April 10th. So I've been here for like 4 months almost. Living it up. The season down here was great. We were 4-1.
Yeah, you guys were killing it.
Yeah, we lost our last game before the bye week, before everything kind of hit the fan down here with the quarantine and the virus and stuff. So up until then, we were doing great. You know, I think we're looking at maybe taking home a championship, but we'll see if the season resumes or not.
Yeah. So again, just to kind of take your stories and try and unpack the lessons from them, it's like, you know, things that you did is, one, when you got released, you stayed focused, you kept working, but it got to a point where you thought like, hey, listen, man, like I still have to be a productive human. I can't just, you know, put my whole life on hold because of this. So you went and you got a job, you still stayed training, you still kept doing your thing when you could. And then the second opportunity presented itself, no hesitations, just full commitment, dive right back in. And that's the thing that's awesome, is it's not like you sat around and made excuses and said like, oh, I'm just waiting for my opportunity. It's like, no, I went out, I got a job, I was doing my thing, and I was staying ready. And when that opportunity presented itself, I was able to pull trig, dive in, and now you're in Mexico. And it's that's the one thing that I think is awesome, is throughout all of the ups and downs, it's not like you ever kind of lost focus on your goals. It's you just shifted. You didn't lock yourself in a basement and think like, oh, woe is me, I got cut, woe is me. It's like, no, man, I'm ready. When someone calls, when an opportunity presents itself, I'll be there, and I'll show up and I'll do my thing. So what would you say about this experience so far down in Mexico? Like, obviously this the virus and everything significantly dampened your experience, we'll put it that way. We'll try and keep the expletives out of this as best as we can. But, you know, how was that experience? What was the level of play like? How did you feel playing American football again, right? Because you guys are playing American football rules, so it's a little bit of an adjustment for you. Like, how was that?
It's honestly been like amazing. Like I had really no idea what to expect. Like I watched a YouTube video that the CFL made about a game day experience in Mexico City. And luckily it was for the team that I play for. So I got a little glimpse, but coming down here, I was like, oh, it's going to be, you know, kind of bush league, not the best, but I was really surprised to learn that, you know, university football here is huge. There's like 20 universities that have been playing football here for 100 years, which is almost as long as like United States and Canada been playing it longer. So they have like really good programs here. They have a lot of good players who have been playing like at high levels for quite a while. So, it was good. It was good to see that. And the competition was a lot higher than what I was expecting. Yeah.
Would you put it on par with like OUA football? Is it that level, or is it above that level, slightly below? What would you say?
But like an average OUA game, maybe not like your top teams playing, but the average game. Just because this, like, the attention to detail here is a lot less than what we're used to, like finishing on the right side of the ball carrier, like, all those little details, like pursuing and then trying to strip the ball, like those things that our coaches preach. And like, you got to have your hands in this place, you got to have your feet here. Like, they're just more lackadaisical with that. It's kind of more just like, let's call the play and let's have fun. Like, let's just make plays.
Okay.
It's a little more schoolyard like that, but overall, like, the competition is very high. The schemes are pretty complicated. Like, we run some fun things. The adjustment to American football was a little weird, just because I'm not used to the field spacing and, the different play calls and the different play tendencies that they have. But it was nice for me as a DB because there's no waggle. I can beat people up for 5 yards, which was amazing. I was loving that. Like, I was just playing press every chance I could, just to take advantage of the no waggle. I was like, damn, this is easy. I can just turn and run with whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really like take in is the difference that the field size makes between Canadian football and American football. Like, man, that makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. Like, when you think of a running play on an American football field, like that's why American football bangs harder, is because it has to come downhill way faster because there's no space.
Yeah.
Like with Canadian football, like we can take things a lot more lateral, and a lot of our tackles are more of like a profile tackle because of all this field space we have. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really get, is that, the Canadian football game and American football game, like, same sport, but they're not the same sport, if you know what I'm saying. Like, they're completely different.
Yeah.
Completely.
Everybody's involved in the tackle here. Like, I found myself, I was playing on safety and I was hitting O-linemen like freaking every other play on screens and runs. I was like hitting 2 or 3 O-linemen.
Yeah.
Whereas in Canada, you hit an O-lineman, something's wrong if you're a safety.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Are you coming in?
Yeah. All right, man. So we've mentioned it a few times that we're kind of recording this podcast. It's April 10th, 2020, the year from hell, apparently. We're recording this in the middle of this pandemic. What are the things that you're kind of doing to stay sharp? And what would your advice be to, the high school and university level athletes out there?
What I'm doing right now is like what I kind of mentioned earlier. I never really was a fan of reading. And over the last couple of months, I really got into it. So I've been spending like an hour or so every day just reading my books. I have a couple different books on the go right now. I got The Art of War, and I got a book called The Prophet by Gabriel Calan, which is more of like, it's like poetry, philosophical book to sprinkle in with The Art of War. And then I've been reading The Catcher in the Rye just for entertainment. But, just try to take this time that you're not mobile, you're not out with your friends, and just come away with a skill. Like, if you can learn a couple of things from reading some books, listening to some podcasts, spending the time to stretch, learn about your body a little bit, that's the most important thing here, is just using this time properly, not just sitting around all day playing video games. I know it's fun, but there's more important things here. And if you do have goals to go beyond playing high school, university football, you really got to take those things seriously and try to incorporate, something that's going to make you better in your life every single day. It doesn't have to be hours every day. It can be half an hour, 15 minutes, as long as you're putting that brick down each day, to lay your path to where you want to be. That's awesome, man. Anything else you want to say? I just want to say thank you for having me. It's been great to see your face and talk to you. I feel like I haven't communication with anyone back home in a while, man. It's nice to see you again. Yeah, dude, I really appreciate like you taking the time out of your day to be on here and to kind of share your story with people. I think there's like a lot to learn, right? Like, your story is a pretty interesting one. You've had some ups, you've had some downs, but what the coolest thing was to hear how you kind of stayed level-headed as best you could through it all, and always kept your eyes on the prize. And
you know, it was a pleasure playing alongside you. I got to see you, like I said, I got to see you come in as a bright-eyed rookie, and see, you know, you have some really successful career, and I loved playing with you, and it's been an absolute pleasure to coach you and be your friend for as long as I have. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here. I'm going to stop the recording right now, but stay on here and we'll chat. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.